is Martin Drummond with Progressive News. It's Friday, March 8th, 2019. And we'll talk about Syria a little bit here.
Forces to come in and cause death and destruction as they have in the past. There's no benefit whatsoever to the Syrian government to use such weapons because...
Okay, so you're going to try and tell me, you stupid-ass motherfucker from Berkeley. I mean, my God. Berkeley's supposed to have the most credible people, right? Nah. Look, I'm a progressive. I refuse to call myself a liberal, because so many liberals are such idiots, you know, and they're ruining it for all of us. Because, like this guy just said, oh, the Assad regime, what possible reason would they have to use... Come on, man. I suppose there's no reason that we have, and that people want nuclear weapons, right? I suppose there's no reason that Kim Jong-il, or Un, or whatever his name is now, I suppose there's no reason for him to want nuclear weapons, right? And on top of that, as it turns out, this guy's going to run through a litany of reasons why he can prove that the Assad regime didn't do a chemical attack. Well, guess what? Just this morning I saw on Press TV, which is Iranian television, which means it's, you know, the Assad bullshit bureau. I saw where, what did they say? They said Syria rejects the findings of the OCWP or something like that. So anyway, yet another place, another official place has found that Syria did in fact, and we know they've been using chemical weapons. I mean, yeah, mostly chlorine, but every once in a while they get, you know, pull their balls out of their pants and do a sarin attack or something really nasty. And they're not the only ones. I'm looking right here. Where's the intercept? Here's the intercept. Let's see what the intercept has to say about it.
Damascus. What's important about that for us, especially in a world where many people don't really care about Syria, is that 6 days afterwards, cruise missiles hit Syria from the American government. So whatever happened in Douma became a matter of geopolitical importance.
There were immediate claims from rebel activists and from civil defense workers in the area that there seemed to be some sort of chemical attack, based on the fact that they found...
Okay, well, they come to the conclusion that there was a chemical attack. But just like I started out being a conspiracy researcher, I refuse to use the word theorist because they've ruined that term, you know. So the cover-up is as damning as the proof. Okay, it's almost impossible to control the volume on these things. Anyway, so the cover-up is as damning as the actual incident, especially since the cover-up covers it up, right? So at that point, it's like with the Kennedy assassination. You find out all these things like the Warren Commission. The Warren Commission, it's pretty obvious that they covered up the Kennedy assassination. I mean, there's all kinds of shit that they did, like changing people's testimony, and the FBI. They all work together. Matter of fact, with the Kennedy assassination, what makes it so hard to prove that there was a conspiracy is the fact that there were so many people involved in the conspiracy. I mean, you're going like, well, the chief of police and the mafia and the CIA and the... I mean, by the time you get down to it, there's like hundreds of people involved in the assassination, which makes sense. I mean, if you're going to assassinate a president, you probably would want to have a whole lot of people involved. I mean, hell, they say even Woody Harrelson's father was there. So, when I look at what happened in Syria in this case, within days of this chemical attack, the Russians cut a deal with the rebels and took over the area and completely controlled the information, right? They grabbed people whose kids had been filmed suffering from the attack, from the poison gas, and cut deals with them to say anything, or they were lying, or they weren't there, or whatever. And it was all bullshit.
Found dozens of victims who seemed to be suffering the result of some sort of chemical exposure, foaming at the mouth, the corneas in their eyes, affected apparently by chemicals. Within 48 hours, the area fell from rebel hands and came under the control of the Russian government and the Syrian government. The Russian authorities said that the whole chemical attack was staged and that they could prove it.
We have undeniable evidence that this was yet another staged attack.
As a journalist, you should be questioning everyone. Do you trust an official line over an unofficial...
Now, the real problem I have with this is that people like Tulsi Gabbard, for some reason, I mean, she actually went over and sat down with Bashar al-Assad. I mean, it's kind of rude what she did. Because, I mean, he's like Saddam Hussein. They're part and parcel of the same thing. They're Baathists, right? Well, Saddam's dead. But a lot of the impetus for going into Iraq seemed to be that he was a Baathist. I mean, we seem to hate the Baathists, even like Palestinian Baathists, like Yasser Arafat.
Regime change, and we're still in Afghanistan, some 17 years.
And don't get me wrong, I do not believe the United States should be in the Middle East at all. As a matter of fact, if I had my way, I'd bring all Americans home, and I would vet them and make sure that they're not meddling in other people's governments and they're not conspiring with right-wing forces in countries and undemocratic forces in countries before I allowed them to go back. And all the companies would be screaming, bloody murder. We've got to make money. I wouldn't give a shit. I'd be like, well, you've proved to the United States government that that's all you're doing. That all you're doing is going over there and doing business. But not funny business. And I certainly wouldn't allow Americans like Tulsi Gabbard to go over to Syria and hobnob with, because, I mean, Bashar al-Assad will buy anybody that he can. Anybody he can't intimidate or kill. I mean, he's a ruthless motherfucker, man.
Years later, no one knows what the goal is, and we're controlling less and less of the country. So I just want to let's just start off by saying how do you
Yeah, that's bullshit. We're controlling exactly the same amount of the country, and we do that anyway. In Iraq, we still control all of Iraq. Here is, it's YPG controlled territory. Now, he's trying to say the rebel controlled territory is American controlled territory, and that's bullshit. It's nothing to do with who's a rebel or who's ISIS or stuff like that. Now this is American. Well, it's not really American controlled territory, but it is, actually. This is not. This is basically, you could call it Turkish controlled territory. The rebels just don't really control anything without help. And the rest is YPG. It is the Kurds. So that's nonsense too. I mean, the people who've lost territory are ISIS. They're the ones who've been shrunk down. And they've been shrunk down mainly by US-backed YPG forces. But they've also been... But you know what they held out here? Just open area. And basically they just controlled mostly open area here, except for they control the big city called Raqqa, which is right in here. Somebody put up a portrait of Assad. That probably won't fly. I like this map. See this Free Syria Live map? I strongly suggest anybody who's like me and covers Syria, I come here every day and I check out every single one of these. And if you click on them, you can actually watch them. Like a lot of them are videos. Syrian Democratic Forces. So, you know, if you do this every day, you really will become an expert on Syria. And I have since, I don't know, 2012 or so, shortly after the thing began.
same shit. You know how we funded Al Qaeda to
Funded Al Qaeda? Jimmy, you're right. You're a jack-off comedian. We never funded Al Qaeda. We funded the Free Syrian Army for a while, and yes, they allied themselves with al-Nusra, which is a little bit fundy Muslim, but there was like one guy from Al-Qaeda in Syria who they said, okay, you can join up with us for your protection. And, you know, everybody from Al-Qaeda doesn't, you know, there were thousands and thousands of guys who went over and joined Al-Qaeda. And, you know, I don't think that, like, everybody who joined Al-Qaeda deserves, like, to be tortured and then murdered. I mean, yeah, some of them have a bad philosophy, some of them have big mouths, but they're still human beings. You know, everybody should be judged on the individual basis, and just because they hate the United States doesn't, I mean, I hate the United States in some ways. Not 99.9% of the United States, but there's a little 1/10 of 1%, the neocons, who just fuck everybody over. They're murderers. The number of people they've murdered makes ISIS or even Al-Qaeda look like nothing. Nothing. I mean, they murdered 1 million people in Iraq. You know, Assad's probably come close to murdering 1 million people in Syria. Sure, I hate a lot of people. Does that mean that I get dragged away just by the people who I say deserve to die because they're murderers? This is, so just because somebody says, well, I hate America because they murdered 1 million people in Iraq, well, maybe they've got a point, Maybe there's a good reason to hate America. If I ran outside of my house and a bomb hit my house and my mother was inside and she died, I'd be looking for the person who dropped that bomb and the people responsible for sending him there. It's just, we want to conflate everything so we can just kill anybody we want. And, Jimmy's right when he talks about that. But then he wants to throw Syria in to this. I mean, come on, Jimmy, we know who Bashar al-Assad is. This isn't like some kind of brain surgery or rocket science or something.
Overthrow Russia in Afghanistan. We're doing the same thing, so now we're funding them in Syria. This is how it works. And Americans are such suckers. Such suckers. They cut a guy's head off with a kitchen knife. I think we should spend $1 trillion more. So Tulsi Gabbard keeps introducing legislation.
So I don't get it, Jimmy. What are you saying? You're against Al Qaeda and all these guys, but you want to kill them all. You hate them, but then you hate it when we invest $1 million into tracking them down and killing them. And I agree with you on that point. We shouldn't be over there trying. I mean, how many terrorists are there? I mean, we've killed 1 million people in Iraq. The Russians have killed probably 500,000 people in Syria. All these Sunnis. Which ones out of those 1.5 million, and how many in Afghanistan, how many of them actually did anything to us? I mean, fighting amongst themselves, maybe. Blowing off a bomb in Raqqa or blowing off a bomb somewhere, killing other Arabs and whatever. Yeah, but when did they ever attack the United States? I mean, I don't even see them attacking American forces, except in Afghanistan, where we've obviously been there way too long, and they're getting sick of us. They're trying to run us out. But I don't get it. I mean, you can't seem to make up your mind. And the Syrians are the same way. As soon as an American bomb falls on ISIS, it's, oh my God, the Americans have dropped. But how many ISIS have you killed? You do it all day long. I mean, look at this map. You supposedly are fighting ISIS. So here they are out in the desert trying to kill people from ISIS. Here they are. These are all places where they're dropping bombs, and they got drones attacking ISIS. So I mean, they will immediately jump on, and I don't have to prove this, believe me, trust me on these things. I just saw it this morning where the Syrian government was all upset because of this. They said, oh, you killed some women and children. But, gee, how many did you kill today? These red bombs are all artillery and bombs from airplanes and rockets and stuff, the Syrians are dropping. And this is the only reason that they don't actually attack this territory, is the Turks are in there. All these little blue dots are Turkish outposts that they've set up. See, they've completely encircled, and these red ones are Syrian. All I'm saying is, I mean, let's be honest. That's the problem. And Jimmy's not honest. And Tulsi's just way off base on this. I mean, she shouldn't be going there and hobnobbing with Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad's a fucking genocidal madman. You know, Bashar al-Assad's best move was in 2011. Get out of the country, take his family. Either that or he could go, but he probably would have died if he'd gone to Latakia, here where his family's from. Probably would have died sooner or later. They probably would have tracked him down. He probably would have, his best move, because you know what? I don't care if it's in 100 years. Sooner or later, they're going to get Bashir. Yeah, the Russians will probably always be able to keep somebody in there so that they could keep their bases, which are here and probably here. They've got, this is where they have their ports. So, you know, and again, Tulsi's just, she just seems to be worried about the Assad regime. The only thing I can think is Tulsi's probably got some Lebanese or some Syrian in her, or she's got friends, because trust me, I lived in Lebanon and my friends were Christian Lebanese, and they'll tell you whatever, they'll bullshit you all the way.
9/11, you're a veteran. How do you experience 9/11?
That's a heavy question.
She's such a bad actress, you know? I mean, I hate shitty acting anywhere that I see it, but this, she's such a fake.
You know, there are thousands of men and women.
There's thousands of... How do you experience 9/11, Tulsi?
Because that's what Jesus wants. 9/11 was bad.
I agree with that.
God, I can't believe how easy this is.
Mrs.
And all across this country, like myself, who joined the military after the attacks on 9/11.
Griffin, what are your plans for cleaning up our environment?
9/11.
To go after those terrorists who attacked us.
Mrs. Griffin, what about our traffic problem?
9/11.
And to think about how many lives have been lost since. How many American lives, how many first responders' lives were lost.
Haven't printed with Staples before? Try us and earn 100% back in rewards on your first purchase of up to $100.
Lost on 9/11 and since, and those who still suffer from major health problems because...
So, you see what I'm saying? I mean, I went through this with Hillary Clinton, right? I mean, she just played the game. She wasn't a real honest human being. And, you know, I mean, I've been straightforward about Tulsi. I don't like anybody who's in the military because, well, I mean, there's all the reasons you could think of, but how about this one? You sign away your life. you give them permission to get in your face and yell at you and call you names. You sign that piece of paper, and you're also signing a piece of paper saying you'll kill for them. I mean, there's just so much wrong with joining the military. And I understand how easy it is to join the military, because I needed a job real bad once, and I went to the military and I asked them if I could join, and they said, well, you're missing your trigger finger, so you can't join. I'm like, yeah, but I can shoot better than anybody. I mean, I'm a marksman. I mean, I can hit shit from and quick on the draw or whatever you want with a rifle. I mean, I can put it up and fire, and because I grew up, that's all we did as kids. Ran around with our pellet rifles and real guns when I was on the farm, because that's where you could go and shoot. So, you know, they missed out, and as a result, I basically suffered. So I can understand people wanting, and that's what my dad did. My dad was at a loss as to what to do with his, make some money, and he joined the army. And then he ended up basically working for them for the rest of his life. And it's amazing how they reward you, because I can guarantee you that they told him that they told him, your son will get the best education that money can buy. And I was offered to go to Harvard for free. I was sent to Oxford, and I ended up graduating from one of the best 10 schools in the nation, but it was only because they named it one of the best 10 schools the year I got there. I mean, I go to my first economics class, and the dean of the business school, Cameron Business School at the University of St. Thomas, tells us all, well, here's 2 magazines, Newsweek and U.S. World Report or something, and he says if you look on page da-da-da, you'll see where University of St. Thomas Cameron Business School is listed as one of the top 10. I mean, right up there with Harvard and Yale and shit. In a way, I couldn't get away from having that great degree. I mean, I tried, but I was stuck in Houston. I couldn't get into University of Houston, U of H, because I didn't have any grades. But University of St. Thomas would take me right away. And my dad was working for a rich Saudi, and he was gathering information or he had been, and then New York, and then Houston. And I could explain to you how all this has deep meaning, that, when we ended up in Houston, of course the Bushes were getting their start down there. Of course the Saudis were down there. The guy with Fox News who owned, Bin Talal or whatever their names are, I can't even remember anymore. And we're down there working for one of the richest Saudi Arabians in the world, Muhammad Ali Riza, owns Rezayat. You can look them up. It's obvious to people like me who know all about this stuff that, I was being manipulated. Anyway, so I understand a lot of this stuff from points of view that not very many people will have experience with. They certainly don't have experience with all the different points of view that I have. But, we were surrounded by Clinton Democrats the whole time. We didn't know it, or I didn't know it. But it became clear later on. One of the guys who we ran around with, like in Indonesia, he was in charge of all kinds of stupid shit, and he was Clinton's roommate in college, and Clinton made him the ambassador to Uruguay. And he always was president of this bank, president of that bank for a region, like for Southeast Asia or Europe or something. And he was only like 20 22, 25 years old. That's because he was working for intelligence. I mean, I've explained to you why I know these things. But they were Clinton Democrats. Before Clinton Democrats even existed. I mean, this is 75, 74, 75, 76, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Okay? There's always been an evil conservative side of the Democratic Party. And the further you go back, the worse it is. I mean, you can go all the way back to the Civil War, where they were completely on the wrong side, and they completely controlled the Democratic Party. That's why the Republicans were the good guys back then. But this woman, she's a fake. She's a fake. And she's not the first. I mean, Obama came out of Hawaii. Don't ask me what's going on in Hawaii. But, you know, she's going to try. I know that she said that she tries to contend that all the chemical attacks were faked by the rebels. And you know what? Jimmy believes her. He believes her hook, line, and sinker. He's a total sucker for her ass. I'd say he probably was hoping to get laid. That's probably what... Because, you know what, in the end, Jimmy, incredibly intelligent guy, but what a sucker for Tulsi's bullshit. And hey, I love some of the... I mean, Tulsi backs Bernie. Tulsi backs the progressive agenda. But saying you're against wars by saying you support dictators, I'm sorry, but that's a huge contradiction. Huge contradiction.
Once. 9/11 was bad.
Okay. So you've got these guys, they're idiots. And they've been proven wrong by everybody. I mean, I could probably track down the latest thing from today. Here, I'll check it real quick, just in case. Because I think I saw it today, so have a quick look. I can probably show it to you. But mind you, it's going to be from the point of view of Iran. So it's going to be them saying, oh, it's all bullshit. And I'm overwhelmingly progressive, so there's not really any question about what I think. And I certainly don't support... I know my dad, you know, he helped with raising the Mujahideen to go to Afghanistan. That has nothing to do with me. I mean, I'm just an innocent bystander and all that. See if I can find this anywhere. Okay, well. I'm sure I could find it if I wanted to. But, I don't see it anywhere. So you'll just have to take my word for it. Today they got all upset, the Iranians and the Syrians, because somebody put out a somebody came out with a new piece on the chemical attacks condemning Syria, and I could even be passing it because I'm in a hurry. You can find it if you want. It's a Press TV release, but they've completely pinned it on Syria. I mean, that's just a fact. All right, well, this is Martin Drummond with Progressive News. I hope I've been helpful, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.